So we're going to be talking today about converting and retaining donors. Really relevant topic given the nature of this conference. To jump right in here, Brianna, when I think about the role that you and all of your peers have at the Y, you're trying to convert as many donors as possible. Once you have those donors, you're trying to retain them. The big question is, where are they all coming from, right? And when we really think about it, it's a little bit overwhelming, right? I mean, you're trying to interact with people from the front desk, people that might email you, events that you have, right? Targeted ads you might be putting on, people that interact with you on social media. You'll have likely campaigners assigned, right? It's a ton. And then I don't know if you or any of your peers attended the session that we hosted yesterday with Christy and Constance, but we know that today only 6% of your community, your members, will ever give. And then of those, only half will ever make a repeat donation. So that can feel really deflating, right? And so it's really put us in this mindset of, what are some of the main categories that we need to focus on with our partners to amplify this, right? To help you better realize donations and to help you better retain those donors that you have. We've identified 3 categories that we feel like, for the sake of this session, are the most important things for us to touch on. All right, so increasing your opportunity for inbound interest, right? What can we do to really widen that funnel? Increasing the tailored outreach. So just because you have a lot of people you're talking with doesn't necessarily mean that you're engaging them in all the right ways. And then what is your outreach attempts actually, what do they look like, right? How persistent are you? What is the number of outreach attempts that you're putting in? And so around inbound interest, one thing that's really interesting to me is this thought of Googling your organization. So like, Brianna, have you ever Googled your why in the category of charitable giving, right? So
yeah. I've actually had a few of our members ask me about updating our Google, and that was one of the things that our director of marketing and myself had worked on. Specifically, they had asked for, how Google shows like busy times of businesses? Yeah. That was one of the things that they had asked for. So that was something that we worked on.
That's great. I mean, a lot of organizations that we talk with, as simple as it might seem, it's kind of like an aha moment. When they Google like charitable giving, for example, charitable giving Birmingham, that's where I'm located. I don't know necessarily where the YMCA stacks up in that search, right? And the same thing with nonprofits. Or even gym and fitness, what does that look like? Because we know that it starts, to your point, it starts typically with your website. So this self-evaluation of, how is your website performing for you today? So not only, is it easy, is it stacked ranked on Google, what's that first impression that you give? What are your reviews like? We know that 60% of traffic on web is from a mobile device. And then 97% of social traffic is from a mobile device. It's kind of a no-brainer. So when you look at this, Brianna, this is actually a website that Daxco's team designed for one of our partners. They wanted to organize categorically what their pillars were. And then you can notice that right at top, there's a button to give. What's so eye-opening for a lot of our partners is that there are often times where you have to really click into a website 5, 6, 7 times to even find a link to give.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Is that another area that you all have talked about? Is really, how present is your giving link? How easy is that to find and share?
I'm actually on our website right now looking at it. And it looks like on our homepage there's a donate button. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Our website has definitely been under a lot of construction within the past year, trying to adapt to this new kind of way of life that we've been going through during the pandemic, there's definitely an increase in the need for being able to find things online. So that's been a big thing for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you know, beyond that too, we think about what does that content strategy look like? So, you know, what kind of care is going into that first impression? We talked about what does the mobile experience look like, but then beyond that, what is the ad creation, the strategy behind that ad creation, right? There's things like search engine optimization and pay-per-click and reputation management. The list goes on, and it really creates this sense of being overwhelmed, right? I mean, especially you, right, at your Y, I'm sure, are likely doing 3 to 4 positions at once with limited time, limited resources. And so it's insurmountable. How do you really think about creating unique content? Because you mentioned Google, right? Google will knock you down in your listings if you're putting out repetitive content. And so it's this direct energy and effort that has to go into making sure that you're being prioritized as the community looks for what their best option is. Daxco has actually stood up, Brianna, a independent, think about web and digital shop, right? So at Daxco, we are doing these things for our customers, really coming alongside and supporting you all in your web strategy, in your content creation. We're doing more than just standing up a website and saying, here it is, here's kind of the keys if you want to change things, best of luck. We're really coming alongside as that true digital partner. And it's something that an entity of Daxco has had for quite a while, but our nonprofit market is becoming more and more aware of the things that we can do in this area. So these are some examples, right, of what we're doing for one of our partners with one of their camps, where we're really delving into, I mean, as specific as you can see here, like the uniform texture that is actually being applied to images so that everything stays consistent.
Right.
So we talked about inbound. The next thing is really, what does that tailored outreach look like, right? So we're garnering the right audience from our inbound presence, but are we connecting with them in a meaningful way, right? If our outreach is cold to those that we're getting inbound, it's maybe we're just not talking to the right people, or we're not talking to them the right way, or we're not talking to them about the things they actually care about. The problem is, right, is it's like we said before, most Ys don't have the luxury of a dedicated marketing team. It's pretty rare that we talk to a YMCA that has a chief marketing officer or even a marketing coordinator. It's typically someone in membership that is doing the bulk majority of this effort. So what can you really do, right, to carry the weight of, if you're using, for example, you know, a standard operational system out there that takes care of your membership management, you're running exports, you're sorting, you're filtering, you're then importing, and then in a few days, you have to do it all over again, right? Because you may have had people that took action on that message. You may have had people that changed their email. It's overwhelming. Our solution in this area, Brianna, is we have an integrated CRM. So our CRM, Daxco Engage, it has what we call group rules. And so imagine the ability to quickly understand when you're building a campaign, hey, you know, Kelsey gave in 2019, but she hasn't given in 2020. That's a really interesting use case for how I might want to design a campaign. What if I could apply that logic to my database in a few clicks? And that is the power of this solution. And so with a few clicks, you could truly hone in on an audience. It's a dynamic system that is constantly analyzing and sorting that criteria. So in the example I gave, right, if you're identifying people that gave to your 2019 annual campaign, but they haven't given yet to 2021's, as soon as they make that gift, we're not going to send them any more emails, right? And so it creates this really beautiful thing called peace of mind, where you don't have to worry once you build it out, and you can run that campaign from an ongoing basis.
Oh yeah, that sounds really nice. So that way you don't feel like you're hounding people constantly.
Exactly. Yeah. Or you're getting that message that says, hey, I just gave, can you take me off this list? Right. That's never a fun thing.
Yeah.
But going back into that same theme, it's this, what if I don't have a dedicated marketing person? Like, where do I start? Right. And so we have the luxury of being able to work with such a great group of partners in the Y movement today. We've identified templated, really think of them as templated messages, the foundation of how you can build some of these campaigns around giving. So that lives in our CRM. They're called initiative templates. And with a few clicks, you can literally already take the great work that someone has done at a YMCA. You can tailor it for your association specifically to your community, and you're off to the races, right? So imagine all the time that goes into drafting and building out the content and kind of layering out and organizing logos and pictures. That is essentially done here. And you'll notice on this example, this is something that we generated specifically during the pandemic for COVID to talk about those members that converted their membership draft into a donation. So really unique and powerful theme. Brianna, how are you doing so far? Do you have any questions for me?
No, it sounds great so far.
Okay, good. And team, let me know if I can take the pressure off Brianna, if anyone else has joined. That way I don't have to keep the pressure on you, Brianna. If not, I'm sorry, the pressure will continue.
That's okay, no worries.
And so we talked about increasing our inbound interest. We talked about tailoring our outreach once we have that inbound interest. This is perhaps what I believe, and maybe it's because I'm in sales, to be one of the most powerful areas. And that's just increasing the number of outreach attempts, right? It sounds really simple. You can be doing all of the right things, but at the end of the day, if you are reaching out to someone 1 to 2 times and then you cease communication, your likelihood of converting just drops significantly. So Brianna, do you know today, right, if you all host an event and you have a list for that event of potential donors, how many times on average would you say your team is reaching out to them and asking for a charitable gift? Brianna, did we lose you?
No, I'm so sorry. I was talking to a member. I'm multitasking.
You are the perfect example for everything we're talking about, right? You're literally multitasking at the. I totally get it. So I was asking about number of outreach attempts. Like on average today, if you have someone that's a potential donor, how many times do you think your team asks them to give before they move on to the next person?
Is this referring to like in person or CCJ? Have a good day. Is this referring to in person or via email? Because I know that we do send out member emails on a regular basis. But I'm not sure. Like in person, we don't really, I don't think, reach out that much.
Sure. Yeah. So this is really bringing out all of the above, right? So this could be phone calls, emails. It could be in-person touch points. Just curious, if the team has a benchmark or maybe a goal you all are trying to meet when you're interacting with those individuals.
Okay.
Most of the time, what we hear is 2 to 3 attempts, right? So that's an average. And 2 to 3 seems really hard. What's super interesting is that it actually takes an average of 8 attempts to get someone in a conversation with you, right? So 8 different attempts across different mediums at different times of the day. That is next to impossible, especially if someone like you who's literally trying to do multiple things, right? You're interacting with people every single day to go back to a list and even track how many times have I even called this person. It's really difficult. And so the answer really comes down to you need to make a hiring decision, but who on earth could you hire that could possibly reach those goals? We've developed a integrated partnership with a company that does intelligent artificial intelligence. This is a digital assistant that actually interacts with, call them prospects, right? So prospective donors, prospective members, prospective program participants. They're reaching out via email, via text on your behalf, and then they're reporting back to you on who is ready to have a conversation. This applies throughout the life cycle of a potential donor and of an existing donor. So all of these categories you're seeing around recovering previous donors, reactivating unresponsive donors, post-event, upgrading existing donors to a larger gift perhaps, this is someone that's going to be reaching out to this entire demographic, wherever they may be in that journey as a donor. The specific skills, so Brianna, this is to give you some data around them. When we talk about engagement rate, that's actually those that this assistant would be reaching out to who are responding. So they're interacting, they're in a conversation with her at some level. The hot leads generated is referring to those that are ready to take action. They're ready to speak to someone. They're interested in learning more about how they can make a donation, how they can give. These rates are really leaps and bounds above what we hear from our partners around if they were to reach out to, example, a list of 5,000 individuals, how many of those would actually be interested in speaking with them? It's a very small percentage. So you think about getting into the 11, 13% range, it's really powerful in getting above and beyond that 6% number we talked about earlier. This is a theme that feels very overwhelming. Right? You talk about conversational AI. That in and of itself sounds like a sci-fi movie gone wrong, right? But the really great thing about it is so simple. You are truly giving this assistant a talk track. So you're arming them with the ability to speak with someone how you want them to be communicated with. Lastly, team, we know that everyone's a donor. Right? So that's the way we need to approach our community. That's the mindset that we need to have when we're speaking with someone. You're never going to get a response unless you ask. And really to tie all this together, if we're increasing our inbound interest, if we are tailoring our approach and we are persistent in following up with those potential donors, I really think that we can turn around that 6% and be well into the double digits with adopting these principles.